moment you hesitate, you've already lost something you didn't even realize was being tested. Right now, as you listen, there is an invisible door behind you, not made of wood or steel, but of access, attention, and emotional availability. And it has been left slightly open for far too long. People can feel that opening. They always do. They sense it in your pauses, in the way you linger, in the way you explain yourself when no explanation was requested. Attraction doesn't fade loudly, it leaks out quietly through doors that were never meant to stay open. You were taught that staying connected keeps you relevant, that answering, engaging, remaining reachable makes you desirable. That belief is the trap. The longer you leave the door open, the more footsteps gather behind it, not to respect you, but to test how far they can push it before you resist. Every message you didn't need to send, every second chance you granted without being asked, every moment you stayed present after the moment had passed, trained them to see you as accessible. And accessibility kills mystery faster than rejection ever could. There is a dangerous silence that appears right before power shifts, a moment where nothing dramatic happens, no argument, no goodbye. Just the realization that you are no longer the one being pulled, you are the one holding the hinge. This is where most men fail, because closing a door feels final, and finality terrifies those who still hope to be chosen. But attraction doesn't respond to hope, it responds to certainty. When you withdraw access without explanation, without anger, without emotional noise, something unsettling happens on the other side. Confusion replaces comfort. Desire replaces expectation. The mind fills gaps faster than reality ever could. They don't miss you because you left. They miss you because they no longer know where they stand. You don't announce the closing. You don't justify it. You don't slam it for effect. You simply turn calmly, knowing that what you are removing is not affection, but entitlement. This is the moment where control becomes visible without being displayed, where absence begins to speak louder than presence ever did. And once that door starts moving, even slightly, there is no such thing as reopening it without losing something you will never get back. Because from this point on, every second you remain reachable tells them exactly how much access you think you deserve. Once the door begins to close, something primitive awakens on the other side. Not love, not regret, but uncertainty. And uncertainty is unbearable to those who were comfortable touching your time without consequence. They start replaying moments you've already buried, searching for signals that no longer exist, because silence forces the mind to invent explanations, and most of them are worse than the truth. This is where attraction mutates. It stops being warm and becomes sharp. They don't want closeness anymore, they want resolution, and you are no longer offering it. You feel the pull at this stage, the subtle pressure to clarify, to soften the edge, to reassure them that nothing has changed. That instinct is exactly what keeps men weak. The door is not being closed to punish anyone, it's being closed to restore hierarchy. Emotional access is power, and power given freely is power ignored. When you remain calm while removing yourself, when your expression doesn't shift and your voice doesn't tighten, you communicate something far more dangerous than rejection. You communicate indifference to outcome. That is what destabilizes them. They expected negotiation, emotional movement, maybe even conflict. Instead, they are met with stillness. Stillness implies choice. Choice implies value. Value implies scarcity. Scarcity creates gravity. This is why explaining yourself at this moment is fatal. Explanations invite debate, and debate hands control back to the person who already overstepped. You are not disappearing. You are repositioning from accessible to distant, from predictable to unreadable, from emotionally available to emotionally expensive. And once that shift happens, everything they do becomes reactive. Messages increase, tone changes, concern suddenly appears where comfort once lived. They begin to feel the weight of what they assumed would always be there, not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped offering proximity. This is the silent reversal most people never see coming. The one who cared less now holds the leverage. The one who pulled away now defines the pace. And the most dangerous part is this: if you hesitate now, if you reopen even a crack to ease their discomfort, you don't just lose momentum, you confirm every quiet assumption they made about you being unable to walk away. Once that confirmation lands, attraction doesn't just fade, it collapses, and the door you thought you could close later will never move again. By the time the door is halfway closed, perception becomes everything. What they see is no longer the man who explained himself, justified patience, or waited to be chosen. What they see is distance forming, and the mind fills distance with fear. This is why presence mattered less than availability. You didn't change your tone, you didn't escalate, you didn't make a scene. You simply removed access. That visual alone rewrites the narrative they were comfortable living inside. People never respond to what you feel, they respond to what they observe, and what they observe now is restraint. Control reads as strength long before words ever do. Somewhere in the back of your mind you understand this instinctively, because hesitation would have been louder than any argument. A calm exit is a statement that cannot be negotiated. This is where attraction stops being about chemistry and becomes about imbalance. They feel it immediately, the imbalance of wanting clarity from someone who no longer offers it. That imbalance forces the nervous system into alert. The silence after your withdrawal does more damage than confrontation ever could, because it denies them the feedback loop they relied on. They start scanning memories, conversations, expressions, looking for leverage that no longer exists. And this is the moment most men fail, because guilt whispers that they owe an explanation. But explanations restore symmetry, and symmetry kills desire. You don't need to threaten, punish, or accuse. The absence does the work for you. As an old, dangerous thought once put it, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. They judge by what they see happening now, not by promises you once made. And what they see now is finality forming in real time. Finality terrifies people who benefited from access without consequence. They don't miss you yet. They miss the control they thought they had. That distinction matters. When you stay composed while the door closes, you quietly teach them a lesson without teaching anything at all. You show them that crossing a line does not trigger chaos, it triggers disappearance. That's when the dynamic flips permanently. From this point forward, any move they make is an attempt to regain balance, not to build something new. And if you feel the urge to turn around now, to soften the moment so it hurts less, understand this: the discomfort you feel is the last test before power settles, and failing it teaches them exactly how far they can push you next time. Once the door reaches that quiet midpoint, something irreversible happens inside them. Not panic, not sadness, but a slow recalculation. They begin to realize that the leverage they assumed was permanent was only borrowed. Your restraint forces them into a position they avoided: accountability without dialogue. You're no longer participating in the emotional economy where reactions are traded for reassurance. You've stepped out, and systems collapse when one side stops feeding them. This is why distance feels heavier than anger. Anger still invites engagement. Distance offers nothing to grab onto. They replay moments where they tested boundaries, crossed lines softly, expecting elasticity. Now those moments feel louder, sharper, because there is no counterweight coming from you. Silence doesn't argue, it judges, and judgment without explanation feels final. This is where isolation begins, not yours, theirs. You are moving forward with intent, while they are left negotiating with uncertainty. The human mind cannot stand unresolved access. It obsesses, it fills gaps, it invents consequences. That's the pressure building now, unseen but relentless. You don't need to appear cold, because coldness is emotional. You appear resolved. Resolution has weight. It suggests a future that doesn't include them, and that idea fractures attraction into something darker, need mixed with regret. They may reach out indirectly, change tone, soften posture, hint at understanding. These are not gestures of connection. They are attempts to reopen the door without acknowledging why it closed. And this is where your control is tested again. Any response, even a polite one, dilutes the lesson, because the lesson was never meant to be taught through words. It was meant to be felt. Attraction intensifies when access is uncertain, but consequences are clear. You didn't disappear dramatically. You didn't vanish out of spite. You simply stopped standing where you were expected to stand. That subtle shift forces them to confront a version of you that no longer orbits their needs. They begin to feel replaceable in your future, and that thought is more destabilizing than rejection. This is the stage where most people confuse strength with cruelty and backpedal to relieve the tension. But tension is the point. Tension is proof that the dynamic has changed. If you hold this line, the door doesn't need to slam. It closes on its own, quietly, decisively, while they remain on the wrong side of a moment they underestimated. At this stage, attraction mutates into something sharper and less flattering. It's no longer about desire, it's about lost position. They are not reaching for you. They are reaching for the version of themselves that felt secure when you were accessible. Your absence removes their reference point, and without it, they don't know how to calibrate their value. This is why they may suddenly mirror your discipline, your silence, your composure. It looks like growth, but it's reaction. True change doesn't arrive with urgency. What they feel now is the pressure of a door that is no longer responsive to touch. And pressure reveals intent. You can sense it in the timing of their messages, in the restraint that feels rehearsed, in the pauses that wait for permission. None of it works the way they expect, because the dynamic has already tilted. You are no longer a variable they can influence. You are a constant they must adapt to. That shift is unsettling because attraction thrives on perceived advantage. When you stop negotiating, you reclaim advantage without demanding it. This is where many mistake strength for distance alone. Distance is only effective when it's paired with finality. Not cruelty, not explanation. Finality. Finality tells the nervous system that options have closed. And when options close, desire intensifies or dissolves. Either outcome favors you. If it intensifies, it comes with respect because it had to pass through loss to reach you. If it dissolves, it proves that attachment was never rooted in depth, only access. You don't chase clarity at this point. Clarity chases you. The silence you maintain becomes a mirror they can't look away from. Every unanswered impulse, every unreturned signal reinforces a single message you never spoke. You chose progression over permission. That choice doesn't ask to be understood. It asserts itself quietly, and quiet assertions linger longer than loud declarations. This is why restraint feels threatening. It suggests you are no longer available for emotional bargaining. And when someone realizes they can no longer bargain with you, they must confront whether they ever deserve the access they lost. The door is almost closed now, not because you forced it, but because momentum carried it there. And once momentum replaces emotion, reopening it would require something they no longer have. By now, you understand that the door was never the point. The point was what closing it did to the room behind you. Silence doesn't erase you, it sharpens the outline you leave in other people's minds. When access ends without explanation, imagination fills the gap, and imagination is far more powerful than reassurance. They will replay moments, reframe words, search for leverage that no longer exists. You are no longer present to be negotiated with, so they negotiate with themselves instead. This is where attraction either collapses or hardens into something real, because desire without access exposes motive. What remains after the door closes is the truth of what they wanted from you. Not what they said, not what they promised, but what they tried to preserve once they felt loss. And loss changes perception instantly. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. They see the closed door and assume power, certainty, control, even if none of those words were ever spoken. Perception does the work for you. That is why restraint outperforms explanation every time. Explanation invites debate. Restraint ends it. You don't announce boundaries at this stage. You demonstrate them by being unreachable. The moment you stop clarifying, you stop leaking energy, and energy is what attraction feeds on. When it can no longer draw from you, it turns inward and destabilizes the one who expected access. This is not cruelty, it is alignment. You chose a direction and removed friction. The discomfort they feel is the cost of adjusting to a reality where you are no longer available to soothe uncertainty. That discomfort is educational. It teaches them where they stood, and it teaches you how quickly dynamics reveal themselves when choice replaces emotion. You don't reopen the door to see if they learned. Learning is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to maintain the position you claimed the moment you turned away. There is no ceremony at the end of this process, no closure scene. Just distance settling into permanence. And permanence is the only signal that never needs reinforcement. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, stay with it, because what you recognize is the moment most people retreat from. The door is closed now, and whatever is on the other side has already decided who it becomes without you.